Welcome back everybody to the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage. This is the video I promised was coming up next. This is part of putting the Janome free arm, the 642 model, back together after it's had its service. And of course you'll remember in the motor series, I believe, I took the motor out, I think it was the motor series, and I took it out and showed you how I checked the brushes and then how I lubricated the bearings. Now, on the subject of belts, I should mention this. This belt was on this machine, and I suspect this belt is not the original. It looks like it's been replaced. How do you know? One of the things you can do with a belt when you're trying to ascertain, hey, is this belt any good? Do I need to replace it? One of the things you can do is simply visually inspect it. You can look at both sides of the belt. Now, I've got some natural light coming in the window here, and so what you want to do is look for cracks. You can see on the side of the belt, I don't see any fissures, any cracks. And if you take the belt, you don't want to abuse it, but if you take the belt and bend it, I don't see any cracks. I don't see any splits in the belt. And it looks like it's in pretty good shape. So the other thing I did before starting this section of the putting the machine back together, I went and washed my hands because I was doing some lubrication work before and put some grease back on the hand wheel hub here, the drive shaft, and I don't want grease or oil on a belt, nor do I want it on the motor pulley, which has been cleaned with a little alcohol and a cotton swab. So you definitely want friction with your belt, obviously. Now, what I'm going to do, now that I have greased the hub here, is the first thing I want to do before I even try to adjust my my motor bracket to get the tension properly, the first thing I want to do is I want to take my hand wheel, I'm going to put it back on the hub, just like this. And next I'm going to take my washer, and you'll notice that there are two little teeth on the washer, and one side of the washer, they look like they're bending down. This is the back side of the washer. So make sure that when you're putting the washer, hold the washer and make sure that the little teeth are sort of at a slight angle upwards. You want them sort of facing towards you. They're not vertical, but close enough. And you're going to seat the washer right here. Now remember what I mentioned to you guys, if a washer ever pops off when you're trying to get your clutch knob on, the washer, if it's not seated properly, you won't be able to control disengaging the drive shaft to wind a bobbin. So make sure that you've done that properly. And I'll go ahead, I've already oiled that, I'll go ahead. So just screw on the clutch knob and take your time and make sure that washer doesn't pop off. If it does, you can just put it back on. This of course is my set screw for the clutch, which I'll play with in just a minute. Doesn't hurt to have one drop of oil in it. Now, you remember, if you look closely, the bracket, remember the bracket I was telling you guys, it's on a little bit of a slot that slides. It lets you adjust it. So the first thing I want to do, and of course I've cleaned the groove of my hand wheel, I'm going to put the belt on the hand wheel itself. But in order to get the belt on, notice that the bolt holding the bracket or the motor to the body of the machine, notice I can move it, right? I haven't tightened that bolt yet. Then I'm simply going to come over here and get the belt on around so it seats on the pulley. I can push up even more, and there it is. Now the belt is loose, but I've got the belt lined up with the hand wheel, and the hand wheel's not going to go anywhere because I've got the clutch knob on. Now I've got the belt in the pulley of the motor, but I have yet to set the tension. So now I'm going to be adjusting this pulley, and I'll show you guys, as I did I think on the troubleshooting video series, how I adjust belt tension on a sewing machine. Now I've got my trusty screwdriver tip set here. I think of all the tools I have, I think I've mentioned to you all, I use this more than any other tool, and it probably has been seen in my videos more than any of my tools. So I'm going to just take the screwdriver handle in this case. So as I mentioned, I believe on a prior video with that turquoise white brand machine, when you are adjusting belt tension, you want to play with the bracket that holds the motor. And I'm going to loosen the bolt even more here. So now I can move the motor bracket up or down. Okay. As I move it down, it begins to pull on the belt and provide tension. Now, the key is, well, then how do you know? There's no numbered dial here. Now, what I'm going to do is show you guys how I do this, and it's no different than any of the other belt demonstrations that I've shown. But what I'm trying to accomplish is essentially, when I push in on the belt, I want it to move maybe I want it to move maybe 1/4 of an inch. Okay, it has to move some. If it's too tight, it will put too much strain on the bearings of the motor, and you will shorten the life of your motor, which would be a real shame. Now, I'm going to come up. Let's see. If you don't have enough belt tension, you'll know, because your belt will slip, and you'll hear the motor turning. The pulley will be moving, but your hand wheel won't. So now I'm going to see how loose can I keep it. I'm going to go ahead and start tightening my bolt here. Okay, and before you tighten the bolt all the way, push in again and see, right? So maybe I want to push in. Let's see. Now I've gotten the bolt snug. Let's push and let's get a feel for it. That's still a little too loose. I think I want to come down a bit. Come down with the bracket just a bit, and then re-snug the bolt. And this is a process that you will go through as you do this. Okay? Now I've got pretty good tension here. If I put my finger on the belt and I push, right, sort of, I don't know, midway between the motor pulley and the hand wheel, I guess. And if I push in, I can push in about 1/4 of an inch. Okay? Now, I do not, excuse me, I do not have to put my cover on yet. Because remember, there's a plastic cover. And I want to know if my belt tension, if I'm going to get some movement here, I don't want the belt to slip and then have to take the cover back off. So this is the belt tension that I believe is going to be okay. Now, yeah, I can move it with my hand, but again, if I start sewing on something, we'll see. But for now, I'm going to leave this as is, and I'm going to leave the cover off for just a minute, and then we're going to get the rest of the machine set up to sew, and we'll do some testing on it, and we'll know pretty quickly if the belt tension is set properly. Thank you guys for watching and hanging in there with me and the Janome. It looks like so far, fingers crossed, the Janome seems to be responding to the service it's being given. I haven't come across anything that would be a deal breaker or make me think that I cannot save the machine. There will be times when that happens to you, and I've been pointing that out a little bit as we've gone along, particularly when you're trying to inspect built-in pieces of the machine, such as these gears that I've been pointing to and reminding all of you to inspect very closely if you can, because that's going to determine whether your machine is going to have continued life in it. And again, this applying to what I call the hybrid vintage sewing machines of the vintage world. So thank you all again for watching, and stay tuned. We've got the belt back on, we've got the hand wheel on, and in the next video I'll get her set up and we'll do a little test stitching just to make sure our belt tension is good. We'll get the cover on, and then we'll see what all of the efforts on the Janome have wrought. Anyway, thanks again guys for watching and subscribing, and if you have a machine like this or another hybrid machine and you'd like to share comments on, please feel free to leave them down below in the comment section. Thank you.